ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Sitting in tonight, Diane Sawyer.
Good evening. The budget is still tearing much of Washington apart tonight. Democrats are raging at Republicans. Republicans are sniping at each other. All this as Congress struggles to get the government back in business. Early this morning, the House of Representatives approved a new budget agreement. Now it's up to the Senate and then the President to decide if they will go along. We begin in the Senate with ABC's Jim Wooten.
With the federal government winding down, Senate Democratic Leader Mitchell took the floor to urge his colleagues to pass a temporary funding bill that would keep it going until October 20th.
Failure to adopt this resolution will continue and deepen the crisis which now exists, and with the ending of the holiday period tomorrow morning, it will be much worse than it has been over this past weekend.
But throughout the afternoon's long debate, there was no real assurance in the Senate that that crisis was about to be resolved. Republicans like McCain of Arizona were not anxious to get on board.
This process has gone from outrageous to obscene, and we think it ought to come to a halt.
By taking the easy road today, the hard road that we ultimately have to take is going to get steeper and rockier.
Senator Graham and his colleagues were also dealing with a Democratic budget agreement passed by the House early this morning in lieu of the White House congressional leadership package defeated last week. The new package reduces the hit on Medicare from $60 billion to $42 billion, eliminates taxes on heating oil, and proposes that any tax increase come from the House Ways and Means Committee. Then the House passed the stopgap spending bill to reopen the government and passed both along to the Senate. Both Republican leader Dole and Senator Domenici of the Budget Committee suggested they would go along with the new budget package simply to keep the process going. But it doesn't look good. Most Republicans want the Graham-Rudman spending cuts, $100 billion of them, to kick in along with a temporary funding bill, and most Democrats don't. At any rate, the Senate isn't expected to vote on anything until the wee hours, and if the president should veto again, there won't be time enough to jumpstart the government. Jim Wooten, ABC News, Capitol Hill.
If Congress agrees on a budget package, the president still must decide whether to accept it. As ABC's Ann Compton reports, it's not at all clear yet what the president will do.
President Bush drove back from Camp David in a station wagon. It was supposed to be symbolic of the need to save money during the shutdown of the federal government. He returned to find his senior White House advisors worried that the latest budget agreement offered by the House is too vague, that it could be a trap rather than a way out of the budget mess. After a brief interruption for the swearing-in of the new Supreme Court Justice David Souter, the president and his advisors returned to a strategy session. They debated whether Congress can be trusted to fill in the blanks with real savings and revenue the president can live with. President Bush does not want Democrats to raise income taxes or to ignore his demand for a cut in the capital gains tax. And he worries whether congressional leaders can even get a package through rebellious members of the House and Senate. To get government workers back to their desks tomorrow, President Bush is willing to sign a temporary spending measure, but he's demanding that any stopgap resolution get government spending levels down sharply until the permanent new budget can be put in place. Ann Compton, ABC News, the White House.
The spectacle of Congress and the White House hamstrung over the budget has left much of the country fuming. Government by gridlock was the way one newspaper put it. As ABC's Bob Jameson reports, when the public speaks, everybody connected with the process comes up a loser.
Democracy at Work at 591-8900, your reaction to the shenanigans in Washington, D.C.
Callers to radio programs like this one in Chicago are voicing the anger and frustration over the budget crisis, evident in a new ABC News Washington Post poll.
I really think the Congress, Republican, Democrat, care one iota about the people.
That sort of anger contributed to a dramatic drop in President Bush's popularity. It is 65% in the new poll, down from an extraordinarily high 75% last month.
Of course, the president's promises ring hollow at this point.
I think President Bush is the leader of our country, and as the leader of our country, he should have set the tone.
On the budget crisis specifically, 6 of 10 disapprove of his handling, 14% more than last month.
They put everything off to the 11th hour. I mean, but that's normal for our government.
The senators are making a big mess out of it because they're afraid of losing their jobs.
There was an even harsher judgment of Congress. 57% of those questioned blamed it more than the president.
Congress is not doing its job.
They're more concerned about getting reelected than with the national interest.
Democrats and Republicans shared the disapproval equally.
And more than 40% of those polled do not believe Congress capable of handling the nation's most pressing business. They believe members of Congress, Democrats and Republicans alike, are afraid of taking positions that might be unpopular with the voters. Bob Jamison, ABC News, New York.
In a moment, new violence in Jerusalem leaves at least 19 Palestinians dead. If there's nighttime war in Saudi Arabia, how the U.S. will see in the dark, and a bighorn roundup in Indiana.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, brought to you by Jeep and Eagle, a division of Chrysler Corporation.